All right. Welcome. It's been a great night of radio here, I think. Man, I've had some great interviews, if I do say so myself. So I hope you guys have appreciated it. Every week we put this together and we try to bring you important information. And one thing that we have not touched much on, but we are definitely going to, is Trump's big, beautiful bill. What does it mean for business? Well, here to discuss that further with me is Noah Finley. He is the state director for the National Federation of Independent Businesses. Those are your small businesses, typically. These are, this is a particular business sector that I think is really one of the most important. Not only do they employ a lot of people, but they're really on the front lines of helping people out, honestly. And the other thing about them is they're also sort of marginalized when it comes to state policy. I'll be honest with you. It seems like they are ignored for the big boys. So you get somebody like Rivian that gets an $827 million tax subsidy from Pritzker. Same thing with Goshen, CCP-backed Goshen. They get $536 million tax subsidy from Pritzker. And there's another number of other ones as well that are getting these massive subsidies. But many times the small business owners are pretty much left out of those equations. And that's why I just even appreciate them even more. And the other thing about NFIB that I appreciate, Noah, I mean, I hope you guys are doing your legislator ratings again, because they are very revealing. There's a number of legislators, unfortunately, on the Democrat side, that their vote is 100% against business, 100% vote against small businesses specifically. So when NFIB goes to rate their votes, they have 0% ratings, like Ann Stava Murray, like Maura Hirschauer. I mean, I looked this all up last cycle, and hopefully they're doing that again. Noah, though, I mean, Trump's been amazing this week, but probably the most amazing thing is that finally that big, beautiful bill moved out of the Senate. It's back in the House, and it looks like it's going to be a win all around for small businesses.
Yeah, so I really appreciate you having me on today, Jeannie. Always great to talk to you. And this proposal is very important for small businesses. Big Beautiful Bill has a lot of provisions that are absolutely critical for our Main Street community. Most importantly, it makes the small business deduction permanent. That's a 20% small business deduction for businesses that file their taxes as a pass-through entity. That grants them just upfront 20% deduction to bring parity between a small business and the tax rates that a larger corporation would pay. And right now, under current law, that deduction is set to expire. So if Congress doesn't act, small businesses will be facing a massive tax increase at the end of this year. And that would just be devastating for Main Street businesses throughout Illinois, throughout the country. There's other provisions in there, too, that are very, very important. Estate tax, increasing the threshold there, expensing provisions, but most importantly is making that small business deduction permanent, so our small businesses are not faced with a massive tax hike at the beginning of next year.
Wow, that's great. Can you say the same thing about what's happened in Illinois over this spring session? How did small business fare? I noticed that one of the things that you guys start out with, and I was reading from a Center Square article, January 9th, the business group reveals the 2025 agenda to help small businesses in Illinois. And I mean, it seems to me that a lot of it was a discussion about taxes and government overreach and regulation. So I don't think that they fared very well, actually, small businesses in Illinois this session.
It
could have been worse. Okay.
It could have been worse. Like, it's a mixed bag. So there was some talk this year of a service tax, which would have been absolutely devastating for the small business economy.
Yes.
Hitting dry cleaners, legal bills, all types of small businesses. It would have been an astronomical heartache for both small businesses and their customers. That didn't go anywhere. In fact, we never saw a legislative language, so that was a victory. there was proposals.
But Noah, let me stop you right there, because what we're doing is we're talking about victories in the sense that they didn't do something bad. We're not talking about victories in the sense that they actually got rid of some legislation or turned back a tax or two.
Correct.
Yeah.
There is, and that you will see a divergence between Congress is trying to accomplish in D.C. and what we're seeing here in Illinois. We've seen over the past few years, the Illinois General Assembly just nickel and dime businesses and consumers across the state. So this year we're seeing tax increases on short-term rentals, tobacco products, tobacco retail licenses, cell phone surcharges, which hit everyone. We're seeing fines and fees being ramped up to cover operations, state agency operations. There's more gambling taxes, some taxes on larger corporations, out-of-state businesses. There's just a lot of nickel and diming, which is just very frustrating because we are taking money out of communities. So maybe that tax, like we're taking money out of communities throughout the state, and we're bringing it to Springfield for politicians and bureaucrats to spend as they see fit, not as the people who earned that money, who created that wealth. They're not the ones going to decide how that money's being spent. We're now putting politicians in charge.
Well,
and I've heard.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One of the proposals that are tax increases that I've heard the most about from our small business members, it actually was passed last year. It went into effect on January this year, is a new lease tax on personal, what they call tangible personal property. So think if you go to a bowling alley and you rent a pair of shoes to go bowling, you go to a golf course and you rent a golf cart. You are doing a project at your home and you need to use an equipment that you don't have. So you go to your local hardware store and you rent whatever that piece of equipment is to do that project at your home. The state is now imposing a lease tax on that equipment. So once again, here's another fee that businesses and consumers are going to have to take on the chin. And get this, Jeannie, here's one of the really frustrating things about it.
Okay.
Is just last month, the Department of Revenue published their rules. And the way these rules are crafted, so say if you're a small business owner and you rented the equipment from before this passed and you rented out of state and you agreed to pay, you had to pay a use tax to use that because you're leasing that tax and so you agree to pay a use tax, which is imposed by the state. It's basically a sales tax.
Right.
Now that we have this new lease tax, you've already paid that use tax. Now you get to pay another lease tax on top of it. So you're being taxed twice on that same transaction. And for the businesses that are being impacted by that, it's very frustrating because they're being double taxed. And
well, they just feel
you do everything right. You're trying to follow all the rules, and you're paying all the taxes, and then you get slammed twice.
Yeah, no, and this just feels like the sales tax on top of the gas tax scheme that they do. And by the way, your gas taxes are going up too, July 1st, and that affects small business.
Yeah, I mean,
and property taxes, they did nothing on property taxes. I mean, okay, they do all of this work, right? They pass a $55.2 billion budget, largest budget in the state history, general revenue budget. And they do nothing on property taxes. In fact, they make it worse because they typically align with the education budget, a small property tax relief grant up to $50 million. This year it was $43 million, and they decided to suspend it. They suspended it because they know that the problem's not working as designed in 2017. I told them that back then. This is a boondoggle, but they don't listen to me. But they did nothing on property taxes, and the only relief grant they have, they suspended it. I mean, this is what a joke. And property taxes affect small businesses a lot.
And the state tax there, once again, the contrast between what we're seeing at the federal level and the state level is very stark. So in this big, beautiful bill, there's provisions to keep the threshold higher for a state. So it won't hit as many family farms and family-owned businesses. Here in Illinois, there was a proposal on the table, very narrowly construed, just to protect family-owned farms. The cost I heard was like $25 million. We, as you know, we increased the budget considerably here in Illinois.
Yes.
We couldn't find $25 million to protect our family-owned farms even.
No, because they had to give it to the Austin Black Chamber of Commerce for $18 million and the Indo-American Center for $14 million like they did last year. They are spending well over $1 billion with bogus NGOs that do nothing with euphemistic names that nobody knows what the hell they do. That's what they're doing. And they couldn't find $25 million because I looked that up myself. That estate tax is de minimis. They should get rid of it. They're hurting family farmers, and these guys won't do it. When? Tell me, Noah. When is business finally going to speak up in one voice? Taxed enough already. Have a tea party. Throw the freaking crap in the Lake Michigan. I don't care. We need a revolt, and business has to lead it.
And I wish I could say that we were done with raising taxes this year, but as I'm sure you're aware, there is talk about coming back later this year to pass additional taxes to bail out the Chicago area transit system. This isn't the end yet.
No, it's not.
We're likely to see additional tax proposals considered before this year's out, or at the latest early next year, to squeeze yet more money out of Main Street businesses and Illinois consumers. Okay,
business has to revolt. They have got to. They're I think they're really the key to changing the direction of the state. And so I just encourage you. But you're right. We could be looking at another $1.50 delivery tax that passed the Senate handily. It could go right to the House and pass it because they don't know what to do when they owe $770 million in transit costs coming up. And then also it's also scary, the whole energy situation. They didn't pass the energy bill either, and that affects small business.
Energy, I'm glad you brought that up. That is a huge issue because every business uses energy. We've seen, this summer, we're going to see large hikes due to the energy policies of the state. So consumers, businesses are going to see higher electricity prices this year throughout most of the state, particularly in ComEd and Ameren territories. And that comes out of their bottom line. And this proposal you just mentioned would have driven even higher costs, passing on additional costs to consumers, to businesses, which they're going to have to pass on up the whole chain. And it's highly ironic, and you know this as well as I do, is that while we are making it more expensive to produce here in the U.S., where we have clean energy and we put American workers to work, China is investing considerably in their energy market, in coal and everything else. And they are by far the biggest polluter in the world.
Yep.
Hands down. We're not even close to the amount of pollution that China puts out. But by making it more expensive to do business in Illinois, and a lot of business going forward is going to be very energy intensive. All this technology takes a lot of energy. If we can't do it at a competitive price here in the U.S., here in Illinois, it's going to go elsewhere. And if it goes to places like China, we're going to end up with more pollution rather than less pollution. Well, the problem here is Illinois' productivity is going to move to Indiana, not even China. It's going to just move right across the state lines to Indiana. That is one of the biggest alarming stories, though, is that right now, we young people are leaving Illinois in droves, and our population is aging. This is not a good thing. You do not want to be. Demographics is destiny, and the continued population loss is the biggest indictment of onerous government policies driving productive younger
people out of Illinois. And it's, in my opinion, the real reason Pritzker does not deserve a third term. Hey, Noah, we got to leave it there. I got to run to break, but I want to thank you so much for coming on. Noah Finley, the state director for the National Federation of Independent Businesses, your small business advocates in Springfield. Noah, thanks so much.
Hey, thank you, Jeannie.
You bet. Okay, we'll be right back with The Real Story.
You're listening to The Real Story with your host, Jeannie Ives.
Hey, it's Jeannie Ives. Thanks for joining me tonight. We've got time for maybe one call, 312-642-5600. So, yes, I played a lot of my Trump clips. Let's just do one for J.B. Pritzker. Oh, this is him talking about his running mate, Juliana Stratton.
During that first campaign, I initially was greeted by voters with skepticism that's shaped by a history of shady politicians in our state.
Yeah, shady
along with a real begrudging desire to elect a governor who would make things better for working families.
He hasn't.
I think you all know me well enough by now to know that I like waking up with something to prove.
Oh, God.
It keeps at bay the creeping apathy that infects so many politicians these days. That fuel drove me to every corner of this state to show up for more meet and greets and candidate forums than I could count. And that fire gave me the audaciousness to ask a state representative and discerning policy wonk who had slayed a pro-Rauner Democrat and was endorsed by Barack Obama to become my running mate, Juliana Stratton.
He likes waking up to a box of donuts.
Okay, there were so many false things in there, making it better for the working families. No, he hasn't. Okay, $15 billion in new spending. That means $15 billion in new taxes if he's got his balanced budget. $15 billion more. This is after $13 billion from the federal government. This is that came in COVID money. This guy is such a fraud. Okay, on Juliana Stratton, though, who is she? She's a political tool of Mike Madigan, who promoted her to run against Ken Duncan in the Democratic primary after Ken refused to show up for a veto override motion on a pro-union bill that Madigan wanted to skewer Rauner with. $3 million was spent on each side of that state rep primary race, and Madigan called in a favor from Barack Obama to cut a commercial on behalf of Juliana Stratton. Her entire career has been unnotable and politically connected. That is her entire career, and she's going to run for U.S. Senate. She was not some game changer or nothing. Another thing about this speech, because Pritzker did this speech in part, his rollout commercial at Chestnut, Illinois, the geographic center of the state of Illinois. What he failed to mention is that Chestnut children attend schools run by the Mount Pulaski CUSD 23 school district. Where there, only 22% of graduating seniors are proficient in English language arts, and only 11% are proficient in math. That's Pritzker's record. He's not done a damn thing about any of that. Okay, we'll just take this caller real quick. Jim from South Elgin, you're on The Real Story. Welcome to the program. You only got about 30 seconds.
Well, very good show. I played on Urban Talk Radio today Bryant's speech when he talked about living in the past. It was a great event you had, and his words about living in the past.
Oh, C.L. Bryant's. Yes.
Yeah, he was great. I played a minute on Urban Talk Radio.
Yeah.
And people were like, well, it's like, hey, you're living in the past. You talk about reparations. Things today are not what happened years ago, and nobody today is alive is responsible for or victim of slavery. But they keep harboring this stuff because they live in the past. So his words were spot on. So thank you for having that event.
Well, thank you so much, Jim. I appreciate that. Yes, Breakthrough Ideas had our annual dinner on Thursday night. We had C.L. Bryant there and actually radio show host John Anthony as well. And, of course, it was the Civil Rights Act. Is 60 years past that. Has it really just become a race hustle? So those two are just excellent on that. Look, we're all about giving everybody equal opportunity. We want everybody to succeed in America. And in Illinois, you cannot succeed under Governor Pritzker. He's just, his entire speech was full of lies and misdirection. And if you sign up for my emails, you would have gotten this Sunday my distillation on Governor Pritzker's speech, at least in part. I got more work to do on it. But it will be up tomorrow on the breakthrough-ideas.com website. We'll put it into my blog section. So thanks a lot for joining me tonight. I really appreciate you tuning in, and we will listen in next Sunday. We'll have a full program with the Watchdogs next Sunday. This is Jeannie Ives.
En Darwin Furniture, la venta del Día de la Independencia comienza ahora. Durante la venta del Día de la Independencia, ahorra la mitad en toda la tienda y 10% extra en marcas famosas. Y financiamiento sin interés por 50 meses. Con un pago inicial de solo $50. ¿Qué mejor manera de celebrar la libertad que comprar la mayor selección en Chicago de muebles de marca de calidad? La venta del Día de la Independencia ahora mismo en Darwin Furniture. Aplican restricciones. Consulta al vendedor para detalles.